It is the NFL Nightcap Recap, a week 2 edition here in the Between the Hash Marks podcast feed. Great to have everybody here. Just an absolutely dynamic, electrifying, at times surprising, at times worrisome on the injury front NFL Sunday in week 2. And this really was a week that was ruled by the heavyweights. The Green Bay Packers, well, they started the festivities on Thursday night. They got an early start. And going into that game on Thursday, it really felt like that was a potential NFC championship game preview. At least one of those teams felt like they belong in that conversation, potentially representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. And that was Green Bay, because Micah Parsons' legend in Green Bay continues to grow, just as his impact in defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley's defense does. And today, you look what happened around the NFL today. It was the Eagles and the Lions who came out absolutely swinging, throwing haymakers in statement games, statement wins that couldn't have been any more different, but are equally impressive in their own ways now 2 weeks into the season. Let's just start in Detroit, where they seemed like the Lions were playing like not only were they playing angry, they played like this game wasn't business. This game was personal. And the Dan Campbell's team really wanted to go out there and pummel, waiting for the chance to pummel Ben Johnson for the last 9 months. They go out there, hang a 50 burger on the Chicago Bears, on Ben Johnson, on Caleb Williams. And some of the numbers are just as astounding to hear back as they were to watch happen in real time. Jared Goff goes out for 354 yards and 5 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs runs absolutely roughshod, 94 yards and a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 9 catches, 115 yards, 3 scores. Oh, and just for good measure, Jamison Williams, well, he showed up too. 108 yards and a touchdown for Jamison Williams. Watching that game on Sunday, Ford Field might as well have been an assembly line of explosive plays. Gibbs had a 42-yard run. Williams had a 64-yard catch. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a 34-yard catch. And according to the Lions PR department, Detroit's 8.8 yards per play set a franchise record this afternoon. Now, who knows if Detroit can take down Micah Parsons and Jordan Love and the Packers, because I know it's early and I know we're into overreactions and those narratives tend to rule the day. But just when you combine the eye test with what they've been able to do over the past 2 weeks, the Green Bay Packers look like maybe the most complete team in the entire NFL. But these Lions, the Lions that showed up at Ford Field today against the Bears, against Ben Johnson, who was supposed to bring in this prolific offense, against a quarterback who was supposed to have turned the page from a dismal and disappointing and inconsistent rookie season. These Lions looked like the Detroit Lions we've seen over the past 3 seasons. They looked like the kind of team that's embodied Dan Campbell's 5-year tenure in Detroit. So we'll see what happens when these two meet again. But over in Kansas City, the game of the weekend, the Super Bowl rematch, what an awesome old school football game, wasn't it? This was a game where offense was hard to come by. And listen, as much fun as that game was in Detroit and all of the explosive plays and all of the dynamic offenses and the big opportunities from Jared Goff, as fun as that was to watch, I love an old school black and blue defensive slogfest. And what that turned into in Arrowhead Stadium, it was a pair of doubles chess matches, right? You had Steve Spagnuolo against Patrick Mahomes, and you had Vic Fangio against Jalen Hurts. And Fangio very famously didn't blitz Mahomes once during the Super Bowl and still sacked him 5 times back in February. Sunday, the blueprint was completely different. Sunday, Vic Fangio was absolutely relentless. Philly blitzed on 28% of Mahomes' dropbacks. The pressure was unending throughout that game. And you saw a couple of big plays. You saw the big touchdown when the Chiefs tried to get back in it. You also saw the effect of the pressure when Mahomes missed Thornton on an overthrow by about 5 yards on a play that could have kept Kansas City in the game, really helped their chances of winning. But the pass rush was just so disruptive throughout the game. And while Jalen Hurts got across the finish line on a tush push touchdown, it came a couple plays after he hit Devontae Smith deep downfield. Where have we heard and seen that before? While those things were impressive, it was Eagles rookie Andrew Makuba who, in a lot of ways, won this game for Philly because Makuba was in the right place at the right time to intercept Patrick Mahomes in the end zone on a pass that bounced off Travis Kelce's hands and he returned 45 yards down the sideline. Just a huge play. It turns out to be a 14-point swing after the Eagles cash in that interception with a long scoring drive to add some insurance and eventually, put this game on ice with a 20-17 win. I was super high on Makuba coming out of Texas. I thought he was one of the two or three best safeties in the entire draft. Maybe Malachi Starks winds up being a little bit better, having a more impactful career down there in Baltimore. But Makuba played like a heat-seeking missile. He had half a sack. He was all over the backfield. And in a lot of ways, Makuba's emergence really underscores Howie Roseman's brilliance and how the Eagles have built their roster. I spoke to an NFL scouting director right after the game, and he told me, quote, the Eagles are a really well-balanced team. They're also balanced with veteran players and youth. The key to building winning teams is to have balanced and star caliber players in their prime years. The Eagles have that. And Howie Roseman has done a really nice job there. His approach of going for the best player available in the draft keeps paying off for them because good teams lose quality players in free agency all the time, but Howie just replaces them with rookie contracts, unquote. And that's really the brilliance of Howie Roseman. They continuously draft well, which affords them the opportunities to take big swings in free agency when you talk about adding a Saquon Barkley and a Zach Bond. When you talk about adding, A.J. Brown in a trade a couple of years ago, when you have all of these young playmakers on both sides of the ball, the Makubas, the Jalen Carters, the Cooper DeJeans, the Quinyon Mitchells, all of these guys, you can afford to take big swings and sign big time impact, game changing, culture driving players in free agency. So you look at what the Eagles did. They were relentless on defense. They made just enough plays on offense. They're 2-0 with a rather, I'll just say it, lackluster offense through the first 2 weeks. I don't think the Eagles' offense is going to blow anybody away. It's not going to strike fear in anybody's hearts the way that maybe the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love or Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions or some of these other teams will strike fear, like the Buffalo Bills, certainly after what they did today in MetLife against the Jets, coming off of that frenetic comeback against the Ravens. And the Ravens, of course, in that conversation as well. I don't think anybody's going to be intimidated or scared of or worried about the Eagles offense as it's playing right now, but they're 2-0. And the Chiefs, well, they're 0-2 for the first time ever under Patrick Mahomes, and they've lost their last 3 games. They look as vulnerable can be in Kansas City. Now, across the NFL today, there were some amazing comebacks to watch. That Cowboys-Giants game was one of the most entertaining games that I can remember in a long time. What happened in Indianapolis, you'll read about it in the column tomorrow. Pure chaos. Daniel Jones just keeps winning. The Colts just keep finding a way. They're 2-0. But we really leaned heavily into those two games in the column. So I want to go around the NFL a little bit, touch on some other games that maybe we didn't get to in the column. And Sandy, Dave Powell, appreciate you both being here. What were your biggest surprises? What were your biggest takeaways from Sunday? Let me know in the chat. But if we're just going to bounce around the NFL real quick, that Justin Fields injury, that should really scare the Jets because they are paper thin at quarterback behind Tyrod Taylor. And as promising as Fields and that running game looked in week 1 against the Steelers, they were, I'll just say it, I'm going to come out and say it. The Jets were awful against Buffalo. New York rushed for 100 yards against the Bills, who were without Ed Oliver, one of the top run-stopping interior pass rushers, interior run stuffers in the NFL. And they decided Buffalo did to just run roughshod with 403 yards of total offense against the Jets defense. New York had just 154 yards of offense. So they rushed for 100 yards. And Justin Fields, before he suffered a potential concussion and before Tyrod Taylor came in the game, they finished with 154 yards of total offense, 54 yards passing for the New York Jets. Troubling, worrisome, bothersome day for the New York Jets. They're now 0-2, and the Bills, they're the juggernaut that we thought they were. Josh Allen is who we thought he is. James Cook, the driving force of that offense once again, and just an electrifying force for the Buffalo Bills. Great start for Buffalo at 2-0. Another good start? You have to feel good and happy for Sam Darnold, don't you? Because the Steelers, they want to know parts of him during the offseason. He signs in Seattle. And today at Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh, he goes off. Sam Darnold passes for 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Seattle wins 31-17 in blowout fashion against Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I posted on social media on Threads at Matt Lombardo NFL and on Blue Sky, Matt Lombardo, on Monday morning after Seattle's loss in week 1 that I thought the Seahawks really needed a second option in the passing game to emerge. They desperately needed it, especially for Sam Darnold being what he is, especially for that offensive line being as banged up and patchwork and inconsistent as it is. And today, Jackson Smith and Jigbo was awesome again, 103 yards. Cooper Kupp, though, he stepped up. Cooper Kupp stepped up, caught 7 passes for 90 yards. Seattle may have a winning formula, and it might be a winning formula that travels for the Seahawks. We stay in the NFC West, and I know the 49ers went down to New Orleans. I know the Saints are easily and far and away the worst team in football. They're in the Arch Manning, Drew Aller sweepstakes going into next year's draft. But Mac Jones showed up for the 49ers and showed some moxie. 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, but most importantly, no interceptions for the 49ers. And Christian McCaffrey, watch, only 19 touches. I thought with all the injuries, I thought with Mac Jones being in there, you might see Kyle Shanahan really lean on McCaffrey. I thought maybe something outrageous like 35, 40 touches. Shanahan and the 49ers were responsible. They did what they needed to do. They didn't overwork or put McCaffrey in too much risk. 19 touches, 107 yards from scrimmage, and a touchdown. Juan Jennings comes back at wide receiver, catches 5 passes for 89 yards and a score. Welcome back, potential 49ers wide receiver 1. Ricky Pearsall catches 4 for 56. Looked comfortable, looked confident, and looked pretty competent as wide receiver 2/1A in Kyle Shanahan's offense while they wait for Brandon Ayuk to get back. San Francisco's 2-0. They have some momentum. They're not even that healthy. Ayuk is still banged up. Who knows if McCaffrey is 100%? Mac Jones was starting because Brock Purdy's banged up. I was pretty bearish on San Francisco going into the year. I might have been wrong there, especially after you saw the Cardinals almost steal a defeat from the jaws of victory against Carolina and Bryce Young with some crazy heroics for the Panthers. But the 49ers still might be in that driver's seat in the NFC West. You want to talk about a bounce-back performance? According to Next Gen Stats, all 4 of Lamar Jackson's touchdown passes today were over 10 yards downfield. I told people last week, Sunday night, we came on here and talked about it. I posted about it on Threads and on Blue Sky. Take a deep breath if you're a Ravens fan. There's nothing to worry about in Baltimore. I tried to tell people after week 1. But, I get it. I understand it was the Browns today. It was at home. Cleveland is what they are. But that was Lamar Jackson at his finest. And it really is what we should come to expect from Lamar Jackson, because since last year, Jackson has 32 touchdown passes of 10 yards or more through the air, which is 10 more than Joe Burrow, who led that category going into today over that span. The Ravens are going to be fine. The Ravens are one of the most complete teams, one of the most talented teams, one of the most explosive offenses, one of the stingiest defenses at all 3 levels across the NFL. And I'll call it right now. We're sitting here on September 14th. I'll say it. It's a two-horse race in the AFC for home field advantage. It's Buffalo and it's Baltimore. Now, the Bills' schedule is favorable. They might not trip up. Baltimore has that loss on their ledger. It might be a little bit too much to overcome. But after the Chiefs struggles, and now you see the disappointing news in Cincinnati where Joe Burrow goes down, has turf toe. ESPN's Adam Schefter, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, both reporting surgery is on the table, both suggesting the Bengals could be without Joe Burrow for the next 3 months. I'm not going to say that's a death sentence for the Bengals, but with that patchwork offensive line and that leaky defense, relying on Jake Browning the rest of the way or until Thanksgiving, week before Christmas, in that division where you still got to play Baltimore twice, that's a tall order. I feel bad for Cincinnati because they're 2-0. They finally, shrugged off those slow starts in September, derailing their season, so to speak, and they lose Burrow for an extended amount of time. Wild day across the NFL, a fun day across the NFL. Be on the lookout for 4 downs tomorrow morning, hitting your inbox before you wake up on Monday morning. I've almost lost track of how many people I spoke to for this column. Former Eagle Gary Cobb, NFL scouts, NFL executives, scouting directors, a general manager on Daniel Jones and what he's doing in Indianapolis, and a whole lot more. You're not going to want to miss it. If you're a subscriber, it'll be in your inbox before you woke up. If you are a free subscriber, you can unlock the whole thing by becoming a paid subscriber today. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Cheers to week 2. On to week 3. I'm Matt Lombardo. I'll talk to you on Tuesday on the Between the Hashmarks podcast with Mike Taylor. Cheers.